Good morning. My name is Christy, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the CA Mainframe Global User Community Webcast conference call. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question-and-answer session. If you wish to ask a question during this time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. To withdraw your question, press the pound key. It is now my pleasure to hand the program over to Ms. Melissa Fundanish. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy, and welcome, everyone. My name is Melissa Fundanish, and since we don't have any other business to cover today, we're going to jump right into our presentation. I work in the CA Education Organization, and my specialty is user adoption and our documenting and user adoption solution that we call the CA Productivity Accelerator. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes with you today talking about how you can use that solution to make sure you have accurate documentation and be able to provide rapid product adoption with your CA mainframe solutions. So the CA Productivity Accelerator, which we call CAPA for short, is a content development platform, and it can be used to capture, document, and disseminate critical mainframe knowledge. Think of this as a single source of truth for all your documentation, your training materials, and your support materials. One place to capture your system processes, your business processes, and your subject matter expertise, knowledge, especially if you have mainframers who are lucky enough to be close to retiring. We want to capture that knowledge in their head so we have it for our new folks. So this is the one place you can do that. Having it all in one place and then being able to publish that content any way you need it reduces the time and resources needed to create those types of materials. And it can also help shorten the onboarding time for new users and allow you to easily support existing users. So what ways can you publish this content out? First of all, what you would do is capture your configuration of your CA mainframe solution, adding in your business processes and your SME knowledge. You can publish that content out simply as documentation, and you can publish it out as training and support materials. From a training perspective, you can publish that content out as role-based, web-based training. So your users can take it as simulations, which we call the See It mode, practice simulations, which we call the Try It mode, assessments, if you like to test their knowledge before you give them access to the system, and we call that the Know It mode, and job aids. So those one-page cheat sheets that some users like to have in their hand, we call that the Print It mode. And I've had customers tell me I love to print out the job aid and then take the simulation and take any notes that I need to on the job aid. You can also publish that content out as instructor-led training if you happen to be doing live, over the web, or classroom-type training. You can publish it out as student and or instructor manuals, as well as PowerPoint presentation materials. So any way you want to publish that out for training users, you can do that. In addition to that, you can publish this content out as role-based application, as a role-based application coach. We call that the Do It mode. And what happens is when the users bring up the application coach, it's like a cue card that sits on top of the production environment and walks them through that activity step by step. So instead of having to go back to web-based training or a student guide to find the answers or documentation to find the answers, they can just simply open up the coach, have it sit on top of the application, and walk them through that activity as they're walking through the production application. And what's really important about having something like this is statistics tell us that when we take training, if we don't use that training, what we've learned in that training within 2 weeks, we can lose up to 70% of that knowledge. We still need to train our users before we go live, but it tells you how important it is to also support them after you go live, because there's many things that they do once in a while, and you want to have an easy way for them to get the information so they do the activity correctly. Now, if you want, you can also make the other modes available, so the see it, try it, know it, and print it modes, so they can take any just-in-time training while they have the coach as well. In addition to that, if you have any requirements for providing your help desk with knowledge documents for their knowledge repository, so if somebody calls in with a how-to question, the help desk can point them to that knowledge document. There's an output that you can provide to your help desk, and it provides them with simulation-based answers to how-to questions. And again, all of this is created from a single authoring session. I create my content once, and then I publish it any and all of these ways. So it makes it maintainable not only for an implementation, but when I get to enhancements and upgrades, especially if I have folks that are leaving, it gives me an easy way to capture all that knowledge. So what I'd like to do now is actually show you what this looks like, starting from capturing your knowledge. So what you're looking at now is the Kappa developer. And on the left-hand side, you're looking at some pre-built content. We happen to have some pre-built content for our Endeavor product. And so what you'll see here are lessons and activities which show you the different types of activities you may do in the Endeavor system. Now, if you're using Endeavor, you can certainly purchase this content and then modify it for your configuration. If you have any of our other mainframe products, you can certainly create any content you need from scratch. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So let's say we're going to create an activity that shows us how to log into the system. So the first thing I have here is a topic called System Overview, and I'm going to add an activity. So I'm going to click a new click to add a new topic and give it a name. Let's call it Logging into the System. And then to record that, I've got this little camera icon. When I click on that, it opens up my recording technology. And now I need an environment. So let's go ahead and put the recorder up here. I'll bring up a mainframe environment. And let's go through the process of logging in. So there's two ways to record in Kappa. One is taking each step and recording each step after you take it. That's called manual recording. Then there's automatic recording. So every step I take, it automatically records. So you can set Kappa either way, whatever you feel most comfortable recording in. I like manual record because I want to make sure that everything looks right on the page before I hit that record button. So that's what you'll see me use today. So first of all, I'm going to put in my user ID. In fact, before I do that, well, no, we'll do that. So I'm going to capture that, and you'll notice that when I capture this step, hold on one second, it's captured my start screen, so let me go back and put in my name. Okay, so the first step I took was to actually capture the start screen. Now I'm going to put in my user ID and capture that. I have to hit the tab key and I'll capture that. I'm going to put in my password and capture that. And you'll notice in the recorder it says last recorded event, and it shows that I put in the password. So I know that that was a successful step. Okay, so it didn't like my password. Interesting. Huh, it reverted back to an old password. Okay, so I've got my password in, and the next step that I'm going to take is hit enter, and I'm going to capture that. And on this screen, I have to hit 09 to get into my system. I'm going to capture that. And then I'm going to hit enter again, and I'm going to capture that. And now it's going to have me log in here. So I'll capture my login name, and I hit enter, so I'm going to capture that. And let's see what password it's going to take here. Oops. I'll hit enter. Now see, it didn't like that password. That's interesting. Okay, so I'll use the other password. And it's telling me it's invalid. Okay, so I've captured about 8 steps to enter myself into the system. Let's take a look at what we've created. So here, what I did is I clicked on the Finish button on CAPA, and it's launched me back into the Content Developer. And you'll notice it captured the overview screen, it put in my bubble, and put in my title. Now, in a mainframe green screen environment, when CAPA captures a field, it has trouble getting just that field. So what I need to do is outline where that field is, and now it shows captured just this field. In a web-based application, it's going to capture just that hotspot for that field. So here you'll notice it put in the bubble and put in the text for entering my user ID. I hit the Tab key, it captured that. The next field I used was password, so I'll create that field, and it put in the information for the password. The next step was to hit enter. My next step was to choose that 09 option, so I'll create that field down here. It's created the text for me, and then I hit enter. And then on this page, I had to put in my user ID again. So here's that field. I hit enter, and then I put in my password. So it's captured each of those steps. I hit enter. Now here you'll notice at the end, it gave me the invalid password. So as I was going through the activity, it didn't work right, and I can go back and eliminate this step or change this step if I want to. So I have the ability to recapture actions or screenshots. I also have the ability to do all kinds of other content, make all kinds of other content changes to this activity. So for instance, if I go back to the first page, if I wanted to, I could make my content instructionally sound by putting in an introduction. So I could say, in this activity, you will learn. I can go in, and if there was a place that they go in case they can't log in, so they can let's say log a help desk ticket if they have trouble logging in, I can guide them to that place. So I could say, if you have issues logging in, please submit a support ticket with the help desk. And then I could link to where that is. So I could go in here and put a link to our support site, so it's really easy for my users to get to that. If they have to set their information up for the first time, I could have information on here to say, if this is your first time logging in, here's where you go to set up your ID and password. Maybe it's the same place. Maybe it's a support ticket. So I can link in any information related to business processes as well as the steps that we need to take for the steps that are required in the system. I may want to do something else, so maybe when I get to this page where I choose options, maybe I want to include an explanation frame and then talk about what each of these options are before we choose 09. Maybe they have an option to go to a couple of different pages, so maybe I want to insert a decision frame so my activity branches out for each of these activities or each of these places they could go next. Or maybe I do a separate activity for each one. So I have the ability to make changes anywhere I see that's necessary. If I forgot a frame, I could insert a missing frame, and alternatively, I can delete actions, paths, and frames as well. So I have a lot of ability to modify this content. And what also may be of interest is knowing that you also have a fully functional sound recorder here. So we see some customers, especially in the mainframe area, they'll have their subject matter experts go through and capture all the steps and then record sound and either use that sound as is, so just the raw content to give to other users so that you've captured your material from that subject matter expert, or have somebody make it more instructionally sound based on all the voice overlay that was provided when they were capturing this content. So whatever's going to work best in your environment, what's important to know is that CAPA has a fully functional sound recorder so you can create, modify, import, and export sound as well. So let's say we're done with this activity. We'll go ahead and save it, and let's publish it out. So you can see all those different ways you can publish content. So I'm just going to go to publish. I'm going to publish it to a certain directory. I'll publish just this content. I'm going to publish it a couple of different ways for you. So here, this is actually where the magic happens. This is where I've created my content once, and here's where I have the ability to publish it out any way that I want. So I'm publishing it as the web-based training, so the see it, try it, know it, print it modes. That's the player. That also publishes out my application support, so that little cue card that I talked about can sit on top of the application. I'm publishing out documentation. We call that system process documents. I'm publishing out a training guide, and I'm publishing out a PowerPoint presentation. So you can see I create this content once. I can publish it any way that I need for my users to consume that material. So I'm saving a lot of time in not having to create documentation that's separate from the training materials, that's separate from any kind of support materials I want to provide them with. So let's start by looking at some of the training materials. From a web-based training perspective, this is what it's created for me. Now, I talked a little bit about roles when I introduced CAPA, and so I had roles set up in that content. So when I published this, it automatically picked up my roles, so my users can go in and choose their role. And the content, if I had a library of content here, we only have one example, but if I had a library of content here, theoretically speaking, it would filter the content so we only see what we need for this role. And then when you go to that actual content, you can go into any of the modes we talked about. So we've got the See It simulation, and if we go into that, that walks us through the activity step by step so we can learn how to do it. You have those users who like to learn by seeing how it needs to be done first. For those users who like to learn by doing it themselves or trying it themselves, they can go into the try it mode. So see it and try it are the same. The only difference is see it, you observe it, and try it, you interact with it. So here the user reads the introduction, clicks on start, puts in their user ID, clicks the tab. So they walk through this activity as many times as they want until they feel comfortable. Once they feel comfortable, if you want, you can have them take the assessment. That's the NOAA mode. And you have the ability to set a scoring threshold. Right now it's set at 100%, which is pretty steep. Usually we see companies set this at about 80 or 85%. When you click on start, in some cases it will help you with the information, and in other cases it's going to assume that you know what to do next. So here you need to know what to do. If you don't, you can click on show step and it'll say, if you choose to see this step, it will be graded as incorrect. Do you wish to see it? If you say no, you can guess. If you guess wrong, it'll say the action you performed is incorrect. Please try again. The second time, it'll tell you what to do. The third time, if there was a field, it would highlight the field for you. And the fourth time, it finally says, you know what, why don't you just click on OK and I'll do the step for you. Now, no matter how many times it takes, it'll only mark you off once. At the end, the user can see their score, print off their score. If you want to deploy the web-based training to your learning management system, your LMS, then users can go in, take your training, take their training, and you can run reports on completion rates and assessment scores. I'm going to skip the do it mode because I'm going to show you that as post-go-live support. And I'm going to bring up the print it mode, which is the job aid. So here they have the ability to print out the one-page cheat sheet. And as I mentioned, some customers like to print this off and then go back and do the simulation and take notes on it. So no matter how your users feel comfortable learning, you have many ways to allow them to do that. Now, other ways that we can have our users learn prior to them getting access or when we have an upgrade or enhancements is providing them with a guide. So here it published out my guide. It has a title page. It has my table of contents with my one activity. It picked up the overview for this module. And then here's my activity. It gives you page shots and then what's called a step action table. And the step action table will tell you all the steps you're going to take on this page. And you'll see that format all the way through the guide. And these guides are customizable. If you want to put in your company logo, change the look and feel, the font, the coloring, you can certainly do that. These are all in template format in the Kappa developer. Another way that you may consume this material, if you have a PowerPoint culture, everything we do is in PowerPoint, here you have the same material in PowerPoint. So you've got page shots and then the steps they're going to take. And then you'll notice that each activity on the or each step is highlighted on the page. So that's another way to publish out the content. Now, we also talked about having that post-go-live support. So let's go back to the player package or the web-based training. And once our users go live, they may have questions, so they can bring up Kappa, click on the Do It mode, and that brings up a cue card. And now this cue card can sit on top of a production environment. So let's go back to our production environment. Let's go back to the beginning. Open it up. And here, now it's going to walk me through this activity. So in the top of the box, it's going to tell me what I need to know. And in the bottom, there's a page shot of the same page that you see in the production environment. So it's first telling me, go put in your user ID. And if you need if you have any problems, here's where you log a support ticket. So I'm going to go in and put in my user ID. And then it says, click the tab key. So I'll click tab. And then it tells me I need to put in my password and then click enter. So I'll go ahead and do that. Oops, I don't have it right. And it takes me to the next page. So you can see I can be in the production environment and have this cue card sit on top of the application for as long as I need to. When I'm done, I just close it down and go on my merry way. And this makes it really easy for the users to get the help they need right there in the application for that particular activity, instead of wasting time going back to a document or a guide or web-based training or submitting a support ticket or however else they get help, bothering your subject matter experts. This becomes the first line of defense for your users when they have a question. So that is a look at the application help or the cue card. Now there was one more output that I created that I wanted to share with you, and that was the documentation. So in a separate output, I have this activity in what we call a system process document. So if you have to have everything documented separate from your training materials, because that's a requirement in your organization, whether it's an organizational requirement or a legislative requirement, you can publish out every single activity as its own system process document. So it has all your basic information on the first page, and then it goes through the activity on the subsequent pages, giving you a page shot and your step action tables. So that's a look at how you can create content, publish it for your users to consume, and then what it would look like when your users are actually interacting with that content. Let me go back to my PowerPoint presentation and share with you one more slide, kind of as a summary. So what are some of the major benefits? Being able to capture intellectual knowledge and drive product adoption. So you can document your processes and procedures to manage your strategic intellectual property. This helps enhance user competency because you can then publish it in multiple learning styles or learning methods. It allows you to increase user productivity and ongoing proficiency because you not only train them, but you have just-in-time support with that cue card in the production environment. This all helps you reduce risk. You can provide up-to-date compliance documentation, increase your usage of your mainframe applications because you have targeted knowledge transfer, and you're using a single development platform for the implementation lifecycle. So one single source of truth. This helps reduce your costs, reduce your content creation and maintenance costs because you're creating content once and publishing it many ways. And then having that cue card, training your users the right way, and then having that cue card after you go live reduces your help desk costs because the cue card now becomes your first line of defense. So that is a quick look at how you can use the Kappa solution to capture that mainframe knowledge and also be able to publish it out any way that you need to. So what I'd like to do now is see if you have any questions. So Christy, can I ask you to open up the lines and see if we have any questions? And while you do that, I will check to see if we have any questions in the Q&A.
Yes, ma'am. If you wish to ask an audio question, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. And you have a question from Gary Gillespie.
Hi, Gary.
Hello. So what software is running on my desktop or laptop to capture all this?
The software that you're running is the Kappa Developer, which is a Windows product, and that's for capturing the content. So you can install Kappa one of two ways, as a single user install right on your laptop, which is what I have, or if you have multiple people developing content, there's a server version as well.
Okay. So if this is a team activity, then we could put it on our team server or wiki page, something like that then?
Yeah, you could put it on a server. The developer could be put on the server version could be put on a server. Your content would be stored in a library, in a database. All your users, all your developers, content developers would have access to it. And then you'd also install the software on their laptop, so if they wanted to pull content down and author offline, they could do that and then upload it back on the server version.
And then I take it that Kappa just makes use of normal Windows services to create PDFs and Word documents and whatnot, right?
Exactly, yes, it does. And we do have a technical spec that we can make available to you that walks you through what's required for single user install, what's required for multi-user install, and also from the user perspective, if you're in an Internet Explorer environment, for users to consume that web-based training, there's nothing they have to have at the desktop.
Okay.
Does that help answer your questions?
Yes, it does. Thank you for the presentation.
Great. Thanks for the questions. I appreciate it.
Again, to ask an audio question, please press star, then the number 1.
I'll check again to see if we have any questions online. Okay. Christy, I'll wait to hear from you first.
And we have a question from Saeed Zaidi.
Hi there.
Hi there. Good morning. The question is, do we need any licensing for this desktop client or server portion?
Yes, there is a license per developer. So for each person who's going to develop content, you would have a license for them to develop content, and then for anybody that's going to consume content, if that's different than the developers, a user license for them.
So how do we go about getting that?
You can talk to your account director about it, or your solution strategist. Those would probably be your two first. One of those folks could certainly lead you in the right direction.
So am I correct in recording that the application itself is called Kappa, C-A-P-A?
Mm-hmm. It is. The solution itself is called Kappa, or CA Productivity Accelerator, but everybody internally usually refers to it as Kappa.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Again, to ask an audio question, press star 1. And there are no further audio questions at this time.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. The first one is, how can documents be updated after being published? Since you want to make sure that you use the single source, from a best practice perspective, you want to go back into CAPA and make any updates in CAPA. So if you have to re-record that content, or maybe just change a page in that content, or just change a little bit of content in that content, you do that in CAPA and then republish the content. Now, you certainly can go into the Word document or the PowerPoint and make those changes, but you want to keep in mind that it's not going to be there to republish again. So the best practice is go back to the CAPA developer and make those changes and then republish that content. The next question I see is, would you be able to use this for YouTube video? So if you're asking, can you create content and then make it available on YouTube, that's a really good question. I haven't been asked that question before. I would assume you can, but I would need to do a little more research into that question to figure out the how of how that works. So I can certainly find that out. Also, the next question I have is Office 365 cloud-based acceptable for publishing documents? I don't think Office 365 is on the tech specs as of yet. I do know that they're always trying to add as much as they can. It's not there now. I don't know if they're testing it in the future yet. There's so many iterations, unfortunately, it's hard to keep up. So the answer to the question would be no, it's not right now. We usually come out with enablement packs every 4 to 6 months. So I would say it wouldn't be for another, we just came out with one about 2 months ago, so it wouldn't be for another probably 4 months before we'd know if it was on the new set of specs. All right, so those are all the questions. So I have 2 follow-ups. I do want to make the tech specs available to you, and I do want to get an answer to the YouTube question as well. All right. So those are all the questions that we've had. Thanks so much for all those questions. We really appreciate it. We are going to be putting a poll question up for you. So before you leave, if you wouldn't mind answering that poll question for us, we want to make sure that we're hitting the right content for you when we do these webinar sessions. We also want to thank you for joining us today. And again, thank you for all your great questions. And with that, again, thank you for joining us for the CA Mainframe Global User Community Webcast.
Thank you for your participation. This does conclude today's conference call. You may now disconnect.